making $4,378 in the month of November 2025. Welcome on into some recaps. We got a lot to talk about in this video. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video, so if you're willing to stick with me here, we might have some pretty cool stuff to talk about. But the point of this video, I'll pop off so you can see just really quick how this looks. Here's the current graph, and I want to dive into all of this here and talk about how all of this was done, the big run that we had, essentially how we finished the month, and then we're going to dive into the data, which is the whole point of these videos. So what I do want to start off first with is that a lot of this, or actually all of this money, was done fully automated. I actually lost money manually, and I made this money it was all automated. So let's talk about how that even happened in the first place. Let me go over here and let's talk about the manual stuff first, and then we'll get into the automated stuff, and we'll dive into the details and see what I'm going to be needing to change. So if I go to my Webull accounts, one of these accounts is not even active, but one is. I don't know which one it is, so whatever. We ended up losing $293. These were manual swing trades, and all of this essentially came in one shot. Well, there was multiple trades. We're actually in trades right now, but the bulk of the losses, we lost $363 trading CrowdStrike, and I can pull up the chart really quick. And here was the chart. So the trade idea was a weekly time frame breakout, and I was looking for CrowdStrike to essentially, if I get rid of this for a second, break this consolidation, which it did. So this is the consolidation I wanted to see break, and then pop to the upside. And the idea was pretty good. I was looking for a push towards the $600 price level, which I think is still a valid spot, or it was a valid spot. I'm not looking back on that one and saying anything like, I shouldn't have done it. No, it was fine. This is actually a really good textbook trade that I take all the time. The only thing is that they had earnings in the first week of December, which now we're the first week of December. So I was sitting there saying to myself, well, I'm not holding through that. And once we got closer to those earnings, I kind of knew that the chance of this thing moving substantially is low. So we ended up stopping out anyway. But if I didn't get stopped out, which was close, if I didn't get stopped out, I would be out now anyway. And so it would be, a loss no matter what. But these are good. When we have a prior high, we've got an uptrend, and we've got a big push up, a recent pullback, so you kind of can sucker some shorts in there. Then you move up, and then a consolidation near that high. I love playing these for the upside breakout. These are like a standard breakout trade that I play all the time. This one just didn't work. But what I will say is when I pull up the Webull account, which I'm going to do in a second here, we size this one larger because I have more money in the account, and I've been putting more money in the account. So that was kind of the whole point. Was just slow, or is the whole point, is to slowly increase the size. So as I do that, the trade positions or the trade size can be larger, which means P&L swings can be larger, which means when you have a situation like this where, let me just log in here, so you can see we are live, baby. Yeah, so the account's at $4,000. If you're like, where'd that come from? I believe I added $1,000 this month. There's a big bump right here. I think I added $1,000. I don't know. The P&L is all that matters, though. The account P&L is what I think everyone needs to, what we should be worried about. Let's not do that right now. So if I pull up the P&L, here's a 5-day P&L. If I go back over the past, let's go year to date. I haven't really been trading this. Year to date, the account's up $264.74 in profit, which is nothing crazy, but a large chunk of that was the CrowdStrike 363 loss. Now, if you flip the tide and say, hey, we have a big win, or we have a win of the similar size, that changes things a lot. It's tough to kind of say how we're doing necessarily when you are slowly building or increasing the size of the account. So, but I want to do that for transparency, all that stuff. Cool, whatever. It's just what the point of these things are. I'm not hiding it. And I don't think there's any reason for me to stop doing this manual trading, because it's really not hard. It's not complicated. It's very simple. I'll talk about the trades I have right here in a second. This is just stuff that I'm watching. It's swing trades. It's very chill. I can do it from my phone. I mean, I chart it on my computer when I'm here because I'm at my desk a lot, but outside of that, it's very manageable from the phone. The automated stuff is what I'm quite interested in, just because the potential of like completely removing yourself from the operation, but we'll talk about that in a second. So that was the CrowdStrike trade, nothing bad there. There was a trade here. This was on Bitcoin. It was a short on IBIT that I traded back on. This is the 4th of November. So if I go back in time, I'll actually pull up this really quick so you can see. I made $87, nothing big. It was a 1 hour time frame. It was kind of like a sketchy, not a sketchy situation, but I don't trade these time frames very much at all anymore. And so when I saw the opportunity, I was like, well, I'm going to size this one, small. And if it hits, it hits. Cool, big, great. And so it did. So if I go back to the 4th of November, if I pull up the Bitcoin chart, you'll get a sense of what I was looking at. So back this bad boy up, we start pushing to the downside, and we had this big move down, and I believe it was this guy right here. Yeah, here's the 4th. So we had downtrend on the hourly time frame. Okay. We just took out this low right here. I guess I could have marked it with a better line. And then we have a consolidation right in here. So essentially you go boom, boom. I went short on the break of that consolidation, had a big push down, simple as that. Nothing crazy. I think I was risking like 50, 60 bucks in that trade. So it wasn't a 1 to 2, but it was like a 1 to 1.5, something like that. All these trades I take, I put a stop loss on and a take profit on. Sometimes I'll trim, but mostly I don't. It's mostly it's just the stop loss hits, that's it, and or the target hits, and that's it. I generally don't like to trim. It's not something I do very much of. I haven't tested or back tested very much of doing that. It's tougher when you're doing a manual strategy like that to back test anyway, because you have this subjective kind of discretionary aspect that you can't, it's not as easy to track, right? So that's why when it comes to tracking my stuff, like this is great, TradeZella is great. I'll leave links to them below like always, but I mean, I've been using them for years now. The reason why is because like, dude, I mean, like when you're tracking your own stuff, you have a situation where like, I can sort this to my manual accounts. And then when I'm looking at my manual accounts, it's like, okay, like this is what I like do. This is how my brain's working. So all the things that I'm doing and the results I'm getting, is it perfectly able, am I able to perfectly code that into a trading strategy and say back test this? No, because there's situations where it's like, oh, I'm going to take this short here. Oh, I'm not. And then the situation that I have here, which we have this loss, $17.40 right here on Friday, the 21st, it was an end phase $25 loss and a Hubs $7.80 win. That comes out to that. So let's pull those two guys up. Let's talk about these. The reason with these is because these are kind of also subjective, where both of these technically should still be in the trade because the stop loss hasn't hit. However, I just was like, I don't want to be in these anymore on the short side based on what I was seeing. I'll talk about what I was seeing. And this is kind of one of those things that you can't code. Like I can't code. I guess you could, in theory, you could, but it's very challenging to code this. And so how do you do that in a way, which is where the manual side just stays attractive to me, So breaking down below level here, I entered this one. I think I entered this one late. This is definitely not, maybe I didn't. Maybe this is just a little bit off. I just kind of draw. When I draw these in, these are not a guarantee to what the exact take profit and stop loss is or my exact entry. That's just a visual for me when I look at this back. But essentially getting on the break of the downside here, and we had it was post earnings. So earnings is over. So I know we're good on that. And I'm looking for continuation. Also on this one, I was looking at this and saying, we have tax loss harvesting season. So end of November into early December, people who have been down on stocks that, want to just realize that loss to minimize tax burden, especially in a year where the overall market's gone up. Let's say that you bought end phase at some point this year, you're down. Everyone's down on that position, no matter what. Everyone's down. So you're like, okay, well, I'm down. Maybe I want to sell this thing. And that's part of where I think part of the, I guess, the idea behind the trade, but it's also like, that's got to be there. And then I also have to get my setup. And then that situation was there. So I took the trade and I liked it. And I also like this one too, HubSpot. About to sneeze. We're good. Same idea, very similar idea. Earnings just passed. Pretty much anybody who is in this stock from the first, half of the year is down. Same thing, tax loss harvest. I still don't think these are great stocks to play into end of year long by any means, but I just we got a little push in my direction and then it had a bounce. And then I also had to take into consideration this. So if I looked at sentiment, I was looking at, sentiment and market. I'm like, dude, the sentiment's such ass. Like we have low bullish sentiment and pretty high bearish sentiment, which is generally not a time that I want to be going short. I don't want to be doing that. And then I also look at if you look at this fear and greed index, if you pull this up, at the time. Now we've bounced back off of the lows we were seeing, just a few weeks ago or when I was in these trades, but not even that, dude, we're still in extreme fear. Like we are in extreme fear. And at the time I was in these trades, we were talking about, if I pull up the timeline of this, like we were, can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. It's close. Yeah, like we're here. We had a 7 on the extreme fear in like late November. I'm like, oh my God. So I saw that and I was like, okay, do we want to be short when the market is like screaming at me? Like we've had times where, like earlier this year, we had times where we were pretty fearful for a while. We were there for a few weeks, a few months, and it like kind of kept going lower. But in general, like probability wise, I do not want to be looking short on pretty much anything when fear and sentiment is that low. So that was kind of the idea behind that. So back to this, we exited those trades. I just didn't like him. I think it was a Friday. It was. I just didn't like where I was at. Yeah, this is a Friday. We got out of these on Friday. Yeah, Friday the 21st. I was like, no. Going into Thanksgiving week, I'm like, eh. Seasonality also tends to be pretty strong this time of year. I just didn't want to be short. So I entered a new trade to the long side, and I also have kind of a slight hedge short on the mRNA situation. It's the same kind of idea as like, but it's more of an option strategy. It's a swing trade option strategy where I'm risking, it's like a 1-to-1 essentially what I'm risking, or maybe it's a little bit worse, a little bit off of a 1-to-1 on this one, but it's the same thing. Like everyone who's in this stock this year is pretty much down. It's been going down. We had this breach below this level, and I'm just looking for this to pretty much stay underneath this box, or like low end of this box, and even go lower into end of year. That's the idea behind this essentially options swing. It's nothing like crazy. It's more of kind of an experimental thing, but that's that. And then I have a trade on FFIC, which I don't even know what the fuck is. Flushing Capital Financial Corporation. I don't even know what that is. To be honest, I don't really give a shit. It's a regional bank. And yeah, it's a regional bank. That's, I guess I should say that. But now we're approaching this gap to fill right here on the chart. We're above here. I mean, there's room to $17. So my target's just shy of 17, and we're making our way that downtown essentially to that spot, just little by little. Earnings isn't until like January, so we got plenty of time there. As long as the market stays okay, there's no crazy news here. We should hit TP on that. I'm going to move my stop loss to break even at this point anyway, so we're not going to lose in the trade, but it's a higher probability now that we hit TP on this trade. So that's the deal there. I was looking at silver. I just don't have the funds right now to take this. I was interested in playing this on the 1 hour or the 4 hour time frame today. I got the alert right before the video went live, right before I filmed the video where I started filming. And I was looking for this break. It looks good. It looks like it's going to probably go. Silver is, by the way, crushing right now. New all-time high. Is it? No, isn't. I don't think it's new all-time high. No, it is. It is. That's a new all-time high on silver. Damn, I didn't realize that. Jeez, that's crazy. Crazy run here on silver and gold. Absolutely insane. Just the momentum is there, so just let that ride. But now, speaking of silver and gold, let's get into the automation stuff. That's where I think it's cool. So this is cool, but the reality behind this, by the way, is manual stuff. The numbers will get bigger and bigger as time goes on because I'm putting more money into the accounts and stuff. Probably. I mean, there's a slight possibility that I would pull from here, but it's like probably low. I don't need to do that. So the reality is that these trades should start to go larger and larger in terms of wins, losses, P&L, all that. But there's few and far between. So, 4 or 5 trades a month. In this case, 4 trades this month. That's kind of it. Like it's nothing crazy, and many months will be less, to be honest. So, it'll be fun and it'll be cool as I increase the size. But it's kind of, again, so it's like a side thing. Nothing crazy to be doing on that. Where I'm interested in, and I'm ready to get more excited about, if again the data makes sense, is this. Let me pull the Weebles out and let's go to just the Tradeovate accounts and see what we have. So here is where things get more fun. Here are the automations. So essentially what we have here is there is some indicators, or I guess trading strategies, that I have access to on TradingView, and I have full like customization of them. So it's like essentially there's like a base strategy to the signal or the indicator or whatever you want to call it. And then I go in and I can customize the settings and then back test it and check things and all this stuff. So I go through and I back test and say, hey, this looks pretty solid. I'm going to run this. And then what I have is an automation setup where it takes the signal from TradingView when it fires, long, short, stop loss, take profit, all that. And it sends it to Tradeovate, the broker I'm using, and it automates the trades. And within, a second or two, usually, maybe sometimes a little bit more. That's the thing with the automation. The trades are from when they go off on TradingView to when they go off on the broker, like we're in. So it's pretty close. Like, you know, market orders, like we're pretty close. So I can with some fairly decent confidence, trust my back tests that I'm doing. Now, I also add in some slippage and I add in the fees in the back test. So I'm not like saying, oh, I'm going to get a 200% return over the course of the next, 6 months, when really there's going to be a lot of fees and slippage. So I play that into it. But we didn't have a great month the prior month. So in October wasn't great, but this month was really good. And it was kind of an example of like, sometimes is how it goes. And sometimes you can make your year with just a period of a small period of time. Now, will this make the year? Probably not, but the idea is there. So essentially the year begins or the month begins and, we're doing okay. We're up, we're up like $2-3 grand, which is great. Like we were down, like, I think, I don't know. I forget. Go back to last month's recap. You can see how much we're down. And then it's doing its thing. And then all of a sudden it has these big days. So if I go to the graph, or I guess the November P&L like calendar, we have, the numbers start getting bigger and bigger. We have a $1.16 thousand day. So just over $1,000 day on Friday the 7th. And then nothing, boom, boom. And then boom, all of a sudden we go 2K. The market was closed, I believe, on the 10th. Was that a day? It was a day off, I believe, on the 10th. 2K all of a sudden on the 13th, 1.25K on the 14th. Then we go 2.5K on the 18th, 2.17K on the 19th. And I'm like, holy shit, these are crazy. Really all it was because we had these big ranges, and the strategy is playing off the opening range of the overall market. So not of the NASDAQ. So when you have the NASDAQ situation where it's like, okay, the NASDAQ has got, a big range off the open. This is not a huge one today, but it's pretty big. Where the opening first 15 minutes is pretty big, we're playing off that range. Once that range breaks, we're getting a longer or short. And so say in this situation, the trade actually lost. So I'll pull up what it looks like today. So the trade loses because here's what happens. So if you pull it up, you get an entry on the first 5-minute candle to close above the first 15-minute range. And then we have a take profit and stop loss that I'm customizing based off the back test, based off the data that I see. I customize where I set my target, my stops. And then I can set a max stop, max loss, all this stuff. And so what ends up happening was this goes a little bit in our direction. It's like, and then it kind of falls back, hits our stop loss right here. We get out on this, see the stop loss long, and then, whatever, it does what it is. So we had a big run where we had these huge opening ranges, and I had a max loss. So on this specific thing, I have a max loss set to $600. So essentially, when the range is huge, like let's just take this off the screen for a second, where I guess I can go back and I can pull up I'll pull up the exact day. Like we can see this thing go. So the day we had a 2.5, so the 18th was like the biggest range. So let's just pull up the 18th. So if I go back in time and I pull us to the 18th, if we go back, let's make it a little bit clearer to see. Here's the 19th, here's the 18th. So we had this massive range. So the opening high was here, first 15-minute range is this. So if I go do the math on this, what you're looking at is approximately where is this tool? This tool right here. You're looking at a range of 0.75. I mean, dude, 0.75 is the range. So when the NASDAQ is moving 0.75 in the first 15 minutes, that's a big move. But what ends up happening is if I zoom into the strategy and what TradingView is populating here, based off the settings I have, is you end up situating yourself with a super, super favorable, or I guess maybe not favorable, depends how you think about it, risk reward. So look at this. I know it's a little bit tough to see, but here's our stop, and then here's our take profit. So back out of here. Let's pull this. Let's show you guys on a risk reward profile what that looks like. So here is the short. So if I get in on the entry where that little arrow was right here, set my stop to where I had it here, which would have been about a $600 stop. I think I'm trading 6 contracts of MNQ. I would like to trade 1 contract of NQ, but it's just too risky or too volatile for me at the current size of the account. 3.6. So risking 1 to make 3.6. So do the math. So you're risking 600 to make 3.6x that. And the chance of this happening is low. Like when you have a huge, skewed risk reward profile, like the chance of this happening is low. Like you're going to have less than a 50% win rate if this is what you do all the time. But what ends up happening is when you do hit a couple, it now takes so long for you to give back all of what you made. So for example, like if you look at the strategy and you look at the past, this is the past month. This is the month of November into December. So it had these huge wins. This at one point was up big, but for the month, it's still up 44%, even though it's lost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trades in a row. It's lost 7 trades in a row. It's possible. It's not likely, but it's possible. It's lost 7 in a row. But because you had those big winners and because it just was kind of skewed, it ends up being like you're up 45% this month, which is crazy. At one point, this is nuts. I mean, at one point, we're up like nearly 100%, which is it's insane. But like that's just, it could happen. And that's what trading is all about. So it's like these situations could make or break your year if you want to manually, like if I'm sitting here manually and saying like I have these things running. If I'm sitting here manually, I'm saying to myself, dude, like there's no way this stop loss is enough. That's giving it no room, or I would probably take my profits earlier. So I haven't touched this. I don't manually touch anything. You could, I don't do that because then I essentially throw out the back test that I've done all the work for. Like the back testing is all the work and then it's just now let it run and see what happens, So that was pretty cool. That was the run on this trading strategy specifically. So that's cool. But then you can see how he kind of finished the month. Like, shit, literally shit. Like, but not bad because we had these huge winners. And so now we have these losers. It's like, yeah, whatever. But if you go to the average win loss, it's 1.9. Like that's, dude, give me a 42% win rate with a 1.9 average risk reward. The rest of my life, I'll take it. Like I'll take that shit. Like seriously. But that's not the whole thing. So we have the MNQ strategy going on, the first 15-minute range. Then we also have a gold strategy. So we can see, if I go to the filters here, and I'm going to sort by instrument here. Let's go down to future, and then I want to, not Forex, futures. And then what I want to do is I want to specify the symbol. So let's go to, I guess I could have just done symbol only. If I exclude MGC, MNQ is the NASDAQ, micro NASDAQ. If I get rid of the NASDAQ, now this is only going to show me 2 filters on what are these? Excluding MNQ. And let's just do that. Apply that filter. So we have $2,000 in gains. Why does that feel off? I don't know. That doesn't seem accurate. Maybe it was. Actually, no, that makes sense because this was down earlier. This was down last month, and now it's back. So yeah, this is what we have going on here for playing on MGC. I guess I could just make this filter simpler and just go to MGC. If I go to symbol and then just do MGC, this is playing that. This is probably more accurate. Yes, this makes more sense. Okay, simple. Now we're back. Okay, so playing MGC this month, we lose $719. And then if I go to the filters again, and I get rid of MGC and I go MNQ this month and apply that, we made 2.6 thousand. I recently switched the first couple days of the month. I was trading, I believe, not MNQ, I was trading ES. So if I go to ES, pull this in, this number will be different. Yeah, that's it. That's what it was. So at the beginning of the month, I was trading ES, and then I switched over to MNQ. That's why. So the point is, I was playing the S&P and the NASDAQ off that first 15-minute range strategy. And then if I jump over here to MGC, this was fully done on the same strategy where I think I changed like one thing on this one mid-month. But yeah, so we lost money trading gold, which I have a engulfing candle strategy, nothing crazy. And we made money trading the S&P and the NASDAQ essentially. So that's kind of how we get to this number here. But what I think is more interesting, right? So we have these things, cool. Let's get rid of these filters here for a second. Let's go to the reports. And this is where I think it gets more fun. So we can see how we did, right? All this great stuff. Look at the overview. See that, average hold time was an average of 1 hour and 15 minutes, which kind of makes sense. Cool. But let's go to the reports here. Let's go to symbols so you can see. Yes, it was ES, MGC, and MNQ. So we made money on ES early in the month. We also made money on MNQ. Most of that really came off of that big run we had mid-month, and then we have lost essentially 7 trades since. 6 of those trades being in the month of November, and then one was today, the 1st of December. But going back to this really quick, if I jump back into it, what I will also mention is that if you pull up this chart, or this, I guess, the past month of performance based off the back test on TradingView, which is essentially very similar to what I've received on my own trades, we hit our max loss every single day, but 4 of these days was over the Thanksgiving holiday. Could I have gone back in time to last year's Thanksgiving holiday and back tested the strategy? Probably. And should I do that right now? I'm going to do that right now. So this is me being kind of a dumbass, but also not, because I like to let things run and let them do their thing. But here's how I could have potentially prevented this. Now let's see. I don't know. I really don't know. So what I got to do is I got to go to the continuous contract, because we're on the, I guess, the current contract that expires, like, I don't know. This expires soon, a couple weeks. So if I go to MNQ, the continuous contract, let's pull that up. Okay. You'll see, run this. It's going to look the exact same. But what I want to do, though, is I want to go back to last holidays. So if I go to a custom date range, and I'm going to go back, I guess I could have done this faster, but let's go back in here. When was Thanksgiving? I think it was this. This is the week, right? It was this week right here. So let's go back and let's back test it to not this. Let's go to 2024. I guess we don't even need that. We just need to go to the Friday. Let's go to Saturday. Just get that whole week in there. Okay. So now update the report and let's see. Okay, cool. So if I go back in time, you'll see the trade. I go to list of trades. This trading strategy that last year. So on the week of Thanksgiving last year, this strategy was good. It made money. It would have made money. It literally would have made freaking, it would have made $2,000, 2,100, would have had one loss. So this is why it's like, maybe not the best to change things or to pause things. I let it run. Could I go back to 2023? Yeah, let's do that. Let's go back to 2023. Let's do that. See what happens. 2023. Let's do Thanksgiving 2023 must have been here, right? That must have been, let me just make sure, because it's usually not the week that Thanksgiving wouldn't be on the 30th, right? There's no way. Could Thanksgiving been on the 30th in 2023? I'm just doing this full on live. I don't care. Yeah, it was a 23rd. So this is the week of Thanksgiving right here. Let's go to the Saturday, get that whole week in there. So this exact strategy back in 2023 was ass. It was down $1,300. So you can see more losses than wins. It was ass. So it's like, let the probabilities play out to me. It was like, I'm just going to leave them alone, let it play out. Every year that's going to be different, but it is what it is. So that was the deal. So if I go back to now the past 90 days, it's just to get a sense of how this is done. So this has not been the best. Like, it's kind of like, it's been pretty much break even. Yeah, there's a slight, I guess you could say uptrend, higher lows to it. So it's not bad. And then it had a crazy run, and then it's gotten kind of shit since, but it's not the end of the world. When I look at this, I look at the past 365 days and I say, okay, how is it on the past 365 days? And I go, well, this is good. Like, I'll take this choppiness, because that's kind of how trading is. But if we have a general slope to the upside, I'm happy with it. And if we can just over time, we can look at this in snapshots in time and say, oh, it's shit. It's shit right now. We're getting fucked. And I could do the same thing back. Could have done the same thing back in March and said, oh my God, we're getting fucked. And then we had this run that takes us from March 19th to April 24th, a month and like a week. 5 weeks later, we would have gone from, let's say we're at 4K in the account to 13K, 14K. We're up 10K in a month. It's like, fuck, that's crazy. But there's just the runs that you have. Then you're going to probably have a period where you're down for a while. So to me, I'm happy with this. Now, you could get a little bit, wonky with this and say, well, maybe we've had a bit of a pullback. Chances are our next trade or two will probably be a winner. Probably. But, you don't know. You never know. It's probability. So this game, though, I guess in my head is like, it's kind of cool, because now what you can kind of do is like, you can play into those probabilities. And so what I think the fun where this gets really interesting is now having that slight manual pull, like that slight manual push and pull, where you can now start to do things. So it's like, when would I want to get manual with this? Well, we've lost 7 trades. It's lost 7 trades in a row. Obviously anything could happen, but Go back throughout the past year. How many times, all these little red lines, how many times has it lost 7 in a row? It hasn't. This is actually the biggest losing streak, guys. Maybe back in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the biggest red streak the strategy's had. So now it's like, probability wise, if you were to size up on this next trade or the next couple of trades, chances are it will work. Now, you could get fucked, you can lose, but this is kind of where my head starts to spin, but because I now have data behind it. It's not like I'm just doing that subjectively or discretionarily saying, oh, yo, the market's super strong, I'm going to go fucking double long today. No. I'm like, does it make sense to maybe, play a little bit with that? Yeah, this is where you can kind of manually use your brain a little bit and say, well, probabilities, I have a better probability now. So it's like, if I do this X, Y, Z, chances are we might have a better, boom, like we got something to talk about. So that's that. I'm excited for it. There's some customizations that I want to do. I want to add a break-even stop potentially. So what will end up happening with this is if you look at this back test here, you'll say, okay, well, it's cool. Drawdown is great. It's low, whatever. But profitability is 46.77%, which is not bad. Don't get me wrong. But what if I added a break-even stop feature? So like if we get to a certain point in the move, automatically sets my stop loss break even so we can't lose in the trade. That will probably take our profitable trades up, or I guess you'll have some break evens, but you'll lose less. Will it hurt? Possibly, but that's where my brain's going next. Can we play into that? So a lot of this month's, I guess, positive results are on the back of MNQ and ES, but really just because if you were to go back in time, we kind of had a run on the strategies where end of October wasn't good. And then it just so happens that November we had a good start to the month. You know what I mean? And it's what it is. That's just trading though. You know what I mean? So it's like, this interests me a lot because of the fact that if and I'm watching it, because I'm at my desk almost all the time, but if this can work, it does offer you the ability to kind of like, you have to be on it. You got to be watching the settings and adjusting things and like probabilities, you got to line them up and stuff, but it potentially allows you to automate things and sit back and have to do less, like sweaty palm action, And what I think is the coolest part is it really removes the emotional side of it. You know what I'm saying? So it really removes like that subjective decision-making, like on the fly, I'm, for whatever reason pissed today, or I'm really excited today and I want to, let's see if it can go an extra couple points, and then, which is a manual thing, right? And then it fucks me because I end up not, taking profits when I should have, where I can just let the data tell me where to take profits and where to take my stops. And then, yeah, you're not going, like, this is not going to make you rich. You're not going to go on generational runs. You know what I mean? Like some people will do in trading, which you could do, but then also like, you gotta be skeptical of that too, because someone who's telling you, oh yeah, I haven't lost the past month. Well, okay, let's be real here. Like, are you telling the truth? A, can we verify that? Probably not. And then B, it's like, like, what are your risk rewards? You know what I mean? Can you replicate that? And most of the time, there's red flags, because the point to me, it's like, can we actually replicate it? Like if it can't be replicated, if I can't trust this, you know what I mean, over time with obviously research and checking in, not like you're doing nothing and just jerking off all day while the trading bot does it all for me and I don't have to do shit. No, but if we can have a little bit of a sense to this, and then like manually make the changes we have to when we have to, and then when the trading day comes, just leave it. Like I could just leave it alone, shut my mind off, not think about it, and it will do whatever it's going to do, and then I can assess the data after, and then okay, we have to make changes. How's it doing? Yada yada yada. And it's not, what I'll tell you is it's not blowing my ass out. So that's a positive. Because I was worried that like you get into something like this and then it just blows you the fuck up, and then you just, you lose all your money and that's it. And it's like, well, okay, realistically, if we can hold break even and then like figure something out, and if it could be somewhat positive at the end of a year, 6 months, a year, maybe there's something there, So it's kind of a thing that I've been doing in the background. That's, I think, fun, not taking a ton of my time, but it's a thing that I'm doing in the background that I think is fun. And yeah, so that's the results. Nothing crazy to dive deep into this. Like, I mean, I know that the gold strategy not performing that well, but I do also know, at least this month, but I also know that it did pretty well as gold makes a big run to the upside. So if I jump out and pull up gold's daily time frame chart, the strategy has done well on gold. Geez, gold's made a crazy run. It did very well on gold back in this time frame. And so if we start seeing that push up like silver, I think it could do pretty well. So this is a super long ass video. If you are still watching, you are literally like awesome. Thanks so much for hanging out. And yeah, any questions, comments, leave them below. Like always, I use TradeZella. I'll link them up below like usual. You can save 20%, 10 or 20%, I forget the exact number. But if you use the code or the link, you can save money, which is cool. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.